Welcome to Tracxn Spotlights. Right, I'm your host, and today we are delighted to be joined by Martyn Burke, a Chief Executive Officer at Augment Corporate Finance. Right, Augment is a leading M&A and fundraising advisory firm that specializes in helping companies achieve maximum value, valuations, and strategic acquisitions. Right. With a career spanning decades, Martyn brings a wealth of experience in corporate finance and M&A. He was part of Herman International in 1988 as managing director, and since then has successfully advised countless companies on capital raising and complex M&A transactions. We are excited to dive into his insights today. Martyn, thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. If you can just help us with your entire journey, how you started off and what got you into this M&A transactions, and how has your journey been so far?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having the opportunity. So I started off my career following my education. I thought, well, I'd go into accountancy. It was something which was attractive to me. So I started in industry, joined a logistics company, which was a national in the UK. And then I moved around within that business from the national to last mile delivery to international cargo, heavy haulage, and finished up in logistics with both commercial and domestic removals. I then decided that I wanted to move into manufacturing. And so I did so and joined a company called Soundcraft in 1984, which was a sound reinforcement mixing console. So in the audio industry and very much in the professional side. And I joined them because they wanted to go for an IPO. And when I was interviewed, I did have my doubts about the financial flexibility of the business. And when I joined, my fears were actually come true. And I spent my first 6 months having to diversify and sell some subsidiaries in Japan, Canada, and the US. And also, I unfortunately had to put one company into administration in the UK, and then brought in a venture capitalist as well, which gave us some additional equity and some growth activity. And with that, we grew the business. And at the time when I joined, it was £4 million turnover. We grew it to just over 20 million in 2.5 years.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And I then sold the business to Harman International Industries.
Wow. That's a big deal, though.
It was an interesting journey. And I have to say, I was probably far too young at the time to be leading as FD, but I learned very much on the role. Very much a distressed business.
Sure.
I've always been encouraged by where businesses will work together for the benefit of both parties. So that was a very good learning curve. So having gone through that transaction, then with Harman gave myself and my MD a few other businesses to sort out, which we did do so. And then we were pushing them to expand the business. And so I was with Soundcraft for 4 years, and then 8 years with Harman International Industries. And along the way, we grew the business. And in 1992, Harman International split into 3 divisions. One was in-car entertainment, one was hi-fi, and the other one was professional audio. And in the last 4 years of my tenure with Harman, I did 37 M&A transactions.
Wow.
And sold 4 and did JVs on 3 others. And we grew from what was in 92, $175 million turnover to just over $1 billion 4 years later. And that was through both organic and acquisition growth. And the M&A activity was global. And I ended up being, along the way, deputy president of that particular group, which was by far the biggest group within Harman. I was chief financial officer, investment officer, and in the UK, I was MD for 6 companies. And I spent my 4 years basically traveling on a plane and visiting the companies, either doing the M&A activities by doing full commercial and financial due diligence, all the legals, the SOP agreements, negotiations, and post-integration, or working with those boards. And sometimes we had to replace senior management as well, and just growing that business. So we grew both organically and through acquisition to get to the point that we got to. And within that sphere, we had development houses, manufacturing, distribution, and software companies within that. We got to a point where I have to say the fun went out of the role a bit. I've been traveling for 4 years constantly. We grew the group to the level that we did, and I felt that I needed new challenges. And so I left Harman very amicably. I started up a consultancy business leveraging off of that experience. I also undertook an MBA at the same time, which was undertaken at Ashridge City University. And I continued consulting, working with SMEs, looking at their strategies, their growth plans, and helping them raise cash as and when was required. During that period, it then became very evident that a number of businesses, wherever they were, always needed that corporate finance activity as part of moving forward. I'd been back into corporate roles when VCs or Ps had asked me to. So Investcorp, which was a PE house, asked me to join a business and roll out as business development activity across Europe. I was also involved in other areas, and sectors that I've been engaged in has been very, very wide, from logistics, manufacturing, printing, to software platform companies, application softwares. And I just kind of leverage off the back of all of that. So moving forward, during a period of having various companies in consultancy, we've moved all of that into one arm, which is Augment Corporate Finance. And now I and my associates work with SMEs, working with the boards. I sit on some boards as a strategic advisor. We work for cash flow, whether it's ABL, whether it's growth loans. And also we look at equity participation. I also work with pre-seed and seed and up to round.
Amazing.
Pre-seed is not a great element of our turnover. I will only get engaged if I feel that it is a company that has a great opportunity. There's a market gap where their service or product fits, and that there is a management team that can execute that.
Fantastic. So
if I may just add, in terms of when Augment, and just recently, in the last year, I've also partied to another company called LaGrosse. And LaGrosse is a corporate finance advisory firm, and I'm a partner there. And the reason for doing that is we have 12 partners from turnaround, but we predominantly deal with sell-side transactions. And therefore, we will engage with businesses that has an EBITDA of a minimum of £1 million. And that splits quite nicely between Augment, which is below that level, and then LaGrosse, which then goes up to that market, up to 100 million enterprise value.
Oh, fantastic. And these can be from anywhere in the sectors. I mean, they can, or you have a specific sector that you look at here.
Yeah, I've got a breadth of sectors, which is right across. And my partners within LaGrosse, as well as my associates in Augment, have other areas of expertise. So, for example, one of them is very much tech. One of them is in property and land. Another is in distribution from B2B and B2C. Others have a more legal activity background, and one or two have just purely been in corporate finance bureaus. So there is that mix of expertise, experience across which, through both companies, we can leverage to benefit the client.
Correct. But how do you see this renewable energy sectors, clean energies industries, this AI industries? I mean, there are a lot of acquisitions happening there as well. How do you see these industries to be? What place do they take at this point of time? There are a lot of bigger players who are trying to acquire the smaller players in the market.
Interesting question, an interesting time. If I think you go through any space, I remember in the 2000s when the precursor to SaaS, which was ASPs, were going to be the thing to happen. Now, if you mention an ASP to anybody, they really don't know what he's talking about, but it is a SaaS business. Now you've got these industries which either pick up on those modes, and AI is a big, interesting challenge. It's a challenge to all companies. And I see AI within the corporate finance industry very much being a helper.
Oh, amazing.
Certainly on the research element, and certainly on market activity. And I can use AI to investigate a company, and AI will even draw up a cash flow for me for going out 5 years. Having said that, we've tested that with our clients and what we're doing for them and the material that they have. and then tested it with AI to see what that would bring. And we've used a number of different platforms. And whilst it is good and it gets you so far, it doesn't get you to the real picture right now. Right? And we
Yeah, but I'm assuming that at least
way from that. So whilst it's useful as a helping tool, it's not a full replacement for the likes of pure experience and industry sector experience.
I think that's a good sign, because I think if it is able to help you up to a certain extent, that itself is saving a lot of time, right? And your mind share, because you can now use your mind share for something else, something more important, right? If I'm not wrong.
By using it, it is a better, let's say, exploitation of labour, because it means that, and you're quite right, is that my team and others within it can be better used by maybe more business development activities, by servicing a particular client in an area, rather than spending quite a bit of time doing the research element. But right now, you still have to be careful, because I find time and time again that AI, whilst it's reaching out to the worldwide, it will come back, and there are elements of it that you just cannot take as being true. And it's only because of my experience and my colleagues' experience we can pick up on that and say that that's not right. That's not a benefit to a company that's trying to sell. That's the wrong thing to be using either as a criteria or a hook. And whereas I dare say it is people that are not as experienced, just taking that as gospel, it can lead to detriment valuation on a business. But I think with AI, as the learning activity increases, then undoubtedly it will get better. But we're not quite. And then in terms of sectors, then a lot of them are doing the same, which is looking at AI and seeing how it benefits what their products and the services to the clients.
Correct. I somehow see this as, when we did not have calculators, right? So people would basically do all the mathematical calculation either in their minds or on the paper, right? And as when calculators came in, it made things so easier and made everybody so dumb that they had to rely on the calculator to do a basic calculation, right? So I somehow see this kind of change happening in the recent picture, where there's a lot of reliance on AI to do the basic work, to take care of all the things and a lot of creativity is also being taken care by AI right now, where you're not really using your minds to create things and you're leaving it to the AI to do that stuff. I'm not sure if it's a good sign or a bad sign in the long term.
I think it's a good sign, and the analogy is fine. I mean, I remember, and I'm a lot older, I remember when before Excel was around, or even Lotus 123, you had to write 3 programs to make a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So, and you had to make sure those programs were absolutely spot on and correct for your spreadsheet to work properly. Now, what do we do now? We just get on Excel. We don't even think about it.
Yes,
and you're right. The same will happen with AI as it goes forward.
Correct.
And it is a benefit, and it is there, but it's got to be controlled. And like all technology, it has its challenges, and those it has to be controlled very much. We can't let it run away. And I don't think anybody should be really fearful of the world being overtaken by AI, but we have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that it is managed and controlled in the right way. And it can be very, very useful and a huge benefit to all industries.
Correct. So what are you most excited about in the next 12 months in the M&A industry, and how do you see this entire industry shape in the next 12 months or a year or 2 years?
Right now, the world economy is playing a big part in M&A activity. Each individual country's governments are predominantly struggling for one reason or another. In the UK, as we are struggling with our economy, it's inflicted by what America and policies will come out from the president now. We have the wars in the Middle East. There's a lot of activity that's playing to the degree within the M&A world. Then you've got companies themselves which are trying to find something unique, special, as to offer their services and why you should go to them versus somebody else. And I think there's going to be a little bit of consolidation there. But I think in terms of the industry itself, then people still want to do transactions. And if we take the last 5 years in the UK, there is then a risk-averse element to investment. That's got to change. And people are going to start investing. to start investing in companies and strengths. So I see there being a lot of opportunity. There are companies out there which have struggled or have been successful and maintained their businesses throughout the last 5 years. And some of those, the management team, now a little older, are looking for exits. And we find that there's a lot of activity with people that are coming up to retirement age or pre-retirement age, and they're thinking about what is important for them. And we see a great deal of activity coming forward from that area. There's a lot of owners now where the second generation is either not there or just not interested in the parents' business, whereas before it may be handed down.
I personally come from a family where I was not interested in the third. I'm the third generation, so I left my family business, and
that's because
I can relate to that. Yeah.
Well, that's because now there's a big world out there, and you have the experience and knowledge of getting that. Data is easy to get. Therefore, you have your eyes open to what other opportunities are there. And a lot of us equally like to try and do something ourselves and make it, it's us that made it happen. So I see a great deal of opportunity in that sector of M&A. And then with AI, again, companies that do have pockets of funding available, they're looking to see what is the best company out there to improve their services and businesses. So I don't see it stagnating. I don't see it going backwards. I do see it moving forward.
Amazing, Martyn. And what advice would you give, Martyn, to people who actually want to get into the M&A market industry or corporate finance industry?
Well, it's an interesting role. It has its challenges, but it has its rewards as well. And I don't just mean financially, I mean personally and benefits. It's great to see companies grow. It's great to get a valuation where the owners accept that and are very happy to do that. And with that, it's also, for me, a personal, if we can make sure that people employment and the growth of the business means further employment for individuals. But it's hard work. You know, it can be long hours, it can be challenging, it can be where everything has to be done yesterday. And then you've got some little mini cycles that occur where you're really not twiddling your thumbs, but you're pushing for the next client. And that BD is always at the forefront of the business. So if you've got those wants, needs for you as an individual, then it can be a great industry to get into. Where you add value is really through your experience and knowledge. And I would say to people, don't try and be sector specific. Try and be sector agnostic.
Understood. I think that's where the business is. Yeah, you grow and learn a lot.
Business challenges, and you learn this very easily once you've got them. One, industries and sectors have the little nuances. Industry challenges, issues are very much the same. If you've got the sector experience to be able to say to somebody who's selling the business, I know your sector, I know the pain points, but equally I know what the benefits are and the hooks to get people attracted and where we can gain value for you. Then that only comes through experience as well. So anybody that's looking to go into it, get a good grounding, either go into corporate finance, go maybe into one of the top 4 accountancies and their M&A practices, even some of the legal firms now, where there's lawyers in there, but they're pushing for M&A specialists, which is not of a legal background. Gain as much experience as you can and use that to go forth and gain as much as you can and enjoy the journey while it lasts.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yes, absolutely. I think that makes more sense because when you actually stick to one industry, the experience and the learning curve is not that high. But when you actually open up to a lot of other industries, you get hands-on to a lot of companies and your learning curve actually increases and grows. And it's very much faster than when you stick to one single sector.
It is much faster. And for me personally, my experience was gained very quickly, but also from my M&A side, it's been a lot of international. So dealing with different cultures, different employment laws, different governments, there's also
that's a challenging part.
But it's also been a great learning curve. And of course, for me, being able to say to somebody, if they want to acquire a business in France or if they're selling, then I know those issues that they're going through. Some other people, certainly when they're looking to expand their businesses internationally, don't always appreciate not just the cultural differences, but the governance and compliance issues around dealing and having a business in a specific company and in a specific country. And I mean, as an example, then in France, where you've got works councils, if you have over certain employees, then that triggers a certain other aspect to it. And not everybody understands that. And if they don't understand that, they could then enter into negotiations and even purchase a company where they're not aware of some additional liabilities that comes their way because of the number of employees. So a little bit of experience in international, I think, also adds some gains to the overall your own perspective, but also what you can offer people.
Makes sense. So thank you so much, Martyn. It was amazing talking to you. There's a lot of learning I had personally talking to you now, right? So yeah, we'll quickly wrap this up.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity. And if anybody's thinking of a corporate finance life, then go for it, because it's very varied, and no two projects are quite the same.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Martyn.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.